1 year on from the election victory, this is not how the leadership wanted to mark the event. The government today confirmed its concessions to its own backbenchers on welfare policy, made last week, would cost £2.5 billion. But today, it was still under attack.
Having no public consultation on these plans excludes the voices of disabled people. This is not just about process. This makes disabled people worse off.
Stop taking the hit!
Like the demonstrators outside, many Labour MPs were deeply uncomfortable with a new point system for new applicants for personal independence payments, which they said was a brutal exercise in cost-cutting. Ms Kendall insisted the government had moved significantly.
We have listened carefully and we are making positive changes as a result.
One Labour MP after another complained that disabled groups were against the point system that the government had devised for future claimants of PIP. If disabled groups were truly part of a policy review, why was that policy being implemented before the review reports?
Surely the PIP review should determine the new process. If this is being truly co-produced with disabled people and their organisations, the review should determine both the new process, the new points and the new descriptors.
What is the logic of making changes to future claimants before finishing the TIMS review, now co-produced with disabled people?
I'm confused about how there can be meaningful consultation if we've already put in primary legislation what the outcome of that will be.
The idea that this review is really going to substantially change anything you think is for the birds?
Well, I think it's difficult to see how it can when the conclusions have already been drawn.
This government U-turn came just as Keir Starmer marked his first year in office with interviews discussing errors of judgment. In one, he admitted he'd squeezed the hope out with one of his first big speeches in office.
Things are worse than we ever imagined.
He said he now deeply regretted using the phrase island of strangers when launching immigration policy only last month.
We risk becoming an island of strangers.
And on the welfare reforms mega rebellion that brewed for weeks, Keir Starmer admitted my full attention really bore down on this on Thursday last week, maybe realising the defeat he faced of a government bill at its first vote would have broken records.
So in the entire 20th and 21st century, there has been only one occasion when a government with a secure majority has lost a whole bill at second reading, and that came in 1986 over the shops bill. No other occasion in over 120 years has seen a government lose. And this is a government with an even bigger majority than that. And the idea that they should be even discussing losing a bill was remarkable.
I've got no way of knowing whether that we're going to see a defeat for the government tomorrow. I doubt it. I think we'll see a lot of abstentions. But I think when we get to that committee and report stage, I think we'll find that there are still some angry people around who want things to change.
You wouldn't rule out defeat then if the government doesn't shift?
Well, it's possible because people are very frustrated with this process.
The government's welfare reforms are not in calm waters, even if they win the vote tomorrow night. Many MPs convinced this policy needs much more of a rewrite. Well, it was only at the end of last week that there was sighs of relief around the top table of government that defeat had been averted. But some of the people who helped to negotiate the deal that they thought had averted defeat were up in the House of Commons today, prominent select committee chairs amongst them, sounding very critical of the compromise itself and the wording the government had put on it. And I think that is generating some nerves around government today. Whips are still saying they think that the government will be able to win the vote tomorrow. But you're bound to think there could be, at the moment, perhaps more abstentions than they'd think of, a tighter vote than necessarily they were predicting at the end of last week. They're still saying they think there are probably about 50 rebels. But what the new concern is focusing on, and it was almost every Labour MP who got up critically in that session with Liz Kendall, was that they're concerned that this whole review might be a sham, that there might not be proper co-production with disability groups, and the whole sequencing of the thing might make it a sham because it might report after the reforms are implemented in their raw form. So real concerns there. The vote expected tomorrow night when we're on air.
Indeed, and we'll be speaking then. Gary, thanks very much. Well, on that note, I spoke to the Social Security and Disability Minister, Stephen Timms, shortly before we came on air, and I asked him whether he can guarantee that the government will win the welfare vote tomorrow.
I can't take anything for granted at all. I'm talking to MPs, I've talked to a number today, and I'll be very happy to talk to anyone else who
Are you
has
confident
concerns
it'll
about
pass?
I'm very much looking forward to the debate. I think we've got a very strong package, and I will do everything I can to persuade my colleagues of the merits of it. And indeed, I have spoken to MPs in the last day or two who, thanks to the changes that were made last week, they previously expressed reservations.
Right.
They've now said they're supporting it.
OK, but even with the changes that you've made, there will now be a two-tier system. There will be people, on disabilities who will be, consigned to a life of poverty, if you like, because they had the bad fortune of being born under a Labour government.
No, that's completely untrue. We're opening up opportunities. That's the great advantage of this £1 billion per year investment in employment support. Far too many people have been locked out of work completely needlessly over the last few years. We're going to be opening up.
But you can't guarantee they're going to find work. If you're locked out of work and you don't get the benefits, you're going to have a life of poverty.
The system will provide support for those who are not able to work. We're opening up opportunities for those who can work, many of whom want to work, and we're going to make it possible for them. But on this point about a two-tier system, let me just make this point, that is very common and always has been.
But did you not see any of this coming when you were planning the reforms in the first place?
Well, as the Secretary of State has said this afternoon, welfare reform is difficult, and we recognise those difficulties. And I think the process has led us to a good place. The government is accountable to Parliament. Members of Parliament are accountable to their constituent.
You're leading the review into the eligibility points for the PIP payments. And I just wonder whether this is an open review, because there are many people who think that you've already decided what the outcome will be. And the outcome, if that is the case, for many people in this country, for hundreds of thousands, would just be unacceptable. So you want 4 points, apparently, that you have to qualify for. 2 points alone means that you cannot wash yourself, wash your lower half. That would strike me as being quite a considerable disability. Are those people now going to be excluded?
We are going to be reviewing the activities, the descriptors, and the points awarded for fulfilling those descriptors.
But will it be an open review?
That will all be part of the review. It will be co-designed, co-developed with disabled people, with disability organisations. It is important that the costs of this benefit should be financially sustainable in the future. I think everybody agrees with that, so that is a requirement.
But this government keeps announcing major reforms and then it keeps either diluting them or backing down. And it just comes across as being incredibly weak. And it raises this fundamental question, whether a year into your government, are you here fundamentally to try and balance the books, or are you here to create the kind of society that Labour voters can be proud of?
Our number one mission is to rekindle growth in the UK economy. That means getting people back to work, ending this trapping of far too many people out of work and economically inactive, the problem that we've inherited from the previous government. We're addressing that directly in the package we're taking forward tomorrow, and it will make a big contribution towards rekindling growth in the economy, getting the economy growing again, and building prosperity for the country as a whole.
Stephen Timms, thanks very much.
Thank you.